back in,
Just starting
gosh,
so we can edit, but thank
yeah,
you. Yeah, I left Michigan and just moved to Florida in April. And yeah, I remember
yeah,
talking to you in Miami and saying, and you said, yeah, you have options. I said, yeah, I could sell my house. And anyway,
right, right.
yeah,
It's
but
hard
look
to
at
believe
this.
that was almost a year ago.
It was exactly a year ago,
Wow.
like yesterday or
I
something.
just realized that I was like, oh my gosh, it seems like it was just a few months ago.
I know. And look
Yeah,
at you. What a huge following you have. You're amazing.
thank
I
you.
went on your
Yeah.
live this morning and I loved it. And I was
Oh, thank
like,
you.
oh my God, she has all these people listening and a huge following. Yeah, so I'd love to like start with you telling a little bit about, is your name Mary or Michelle?
Well, it's Mary Michelle, and my last name is Nidifer,
And
but I just go by Michelle.
okay. So I'll just call you Michelle. I thought it was Michelle, but so when did all of the style and all of that start for you in your life? When did you start
Oh,
getting all knowing this was your passion?
well, I was probably about 5 or 6 years old.
Uh,
And I remember my mom used to sew, and she would have these, she quilted actually. So she would have these big fabric bags full of scraps. And I remember pulling those out, making clothes for my Barbies, just hand sewing. And then I had one of those little sewing machines that sewed with glue. I don't know if you've ever seen those,
Oh,
but I would make clothes for my Barbies. And I remember one day just this feeling of, you're going to be a designer. Like, that's your divine path. And I'm like, I'm going to be a designer. That's my journey.
wow.
And it's interesting because I always thought growing up that I had a real interest in fashion. But what I found and what I believe is that fashion and style are almost polar opposites. They're
Really?
related in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, they're kind of opposite because fashion is what you wear. Fashion is really about following the trends, and fashion in a lot of ways can be very shallow and superficial. But style runs deep. Style is who you are to the core. Style is your essence. And for years, I believed I was, into fashion. And I love fashion. I love style. I love following the trends. But what really lights me up, I don't remember how old I was. I was probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, somewhere under 10. And I remember seeing this woman, super put together. To be honest, it was so long ago, I can't really even remember exactly what she looked like. But there was something, I remember her essence. And there was something about her, when you see somebody and they're so put together, but it's not about the clothes. It's about who she was in the clothes. It was about her. It was like, ooh, I know who she is and I want to know more. And it was that feeling of like, what does she have? It's like that je ne sais quoi. Like, what does she possess that you can't just go to the store and buy? And I feel like my whole journey has really been to help my clients bring their own style from the inside out and cultivate what makes them come alive.
I love that. It is so important to feel good in what you're wearing. For me personally, I would say. And it's just, I think people just underestimate that. And I want to hear so much more. I love that you knew at such a young age your passion, and it just is so divine because there's kids today. I was just talking to someone today and like 18, 19, they don't know what they want to do. And my son, he's 24, he's reinventing himself too. But it's
Nice.
like so beautiful that you knew at a young age that what you were immediately attracted to. So the woman that you saw that was so put together, that's when kind of something, a light bulb went off that it wasn't just, it was kind of her, like the confidence or
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And from there, do you want me to
Yeah, keep going.
tell my
Tell us
story?
how
So,
it went. Yeah.
it's so fascinating though, because for me, it was just this truth, like this divine truth of course, this is who I am. But trying to explain that to my dad, who was an insurance agent, he was an amazing entrepreneur and probably the person who influenced me most in starting my business. But he was like, how much money can you make doing that? How are you going to pay the bills? Like, what kind of job are you going to get? And all the practical aspects of it. Of course, parents want to know. I was like, I don't care. I just want to follow my heart. And this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I actually have a degree in what was called apparel arts at the time, fashion design, essentially.
Oh,
And so I did go to school for that. And then I graduated. I was like, what do I do now? Because I graduated in North Carolina at UNC Greensboro. I live in North Carolina, and not exactly, I mean, it's very fashion forward in a lot of ways now, but back then, not so much. And so I worked some retail jobs. I worked for the state of North Carolina and did some things where I wasn't really utilizing my talents. And I ended up sewing. I started, I was a big sewer. I'd always been a big sewer, making clothes for myself. I made clothes for myself all through college. I outfitted my boyfriend. Made things for my friends. And it was just something that I love to do. I love to design. I love to make things. And so fast forward many years, I actually did launch my own line of clothing. My mom believed in me. She's like, you know what? Quit your jobs, quit working retail, quit working, these jobs that are just not
enough.
fulfilling.
Right.
I will support you for a few months until you can get yourself on your feet. And so I did. I quit my jobs and I started doing custom work. I made wedding gowns, I made hats, and eventually I launched a line of ready to wear. And we would go to shows in New York and, sell clothing to other stores. And then I had to figure out production. And like that was a whole other ball game. But it was interesting because, it was just like this continual journey. It was like taking the step and then like, oh, you're being redirected. Oh, you're going to do this now. And oh, you're going to do this now. So I started out making custom wedding gowns, and then it was hats, and then it was wholesale and wholesale clothing. And one thing led to another. And I opened my first retail boutique actually in 1997.
Wow.
And it was it was just this fantasy I had always had about, having my own store. And I met a client. She would come over to my apartment. We'd just sit around and drink tea and talk about, wouldn't it be great if we could, have a beautiful space and what it would look like and just all these things. And
Mm.
then, anyway, long story short, we had a boutique for a few short years, and it was just too much too soon. I didn't know what I was doing. I was managing people. I was designing a line. I was going to New York. I was buying for the store. It was like everything at once. And I didn't know anything about running a retail store. And so we quickly realized we have to pick one. We can't be all things to all people. And so I said, you know what, my passion is about design, is for design. So we closed that. Anyway, long story short, I got burned out after designing for a while, and it was time to have kids. And I actually had it's interesting. Well, it's a long journey, long journey with a lot of twists and a lot of turns. But I remember having my first child, and I struggled. I mean, I think this is a huge part of it, but I struggled with my weight and I struggled with my self-confidence really from an early age. And I made it about my weight. And I made it, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, but I made it about the number on the scale. And that I let that dictate my self-worth. And I gave
So
my
many
power
women.
away for a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of women do that. And
Sadly. But I think it was when I had my first child 19 years ago. And this was completely, again, a divine intervention. But I remember gaining 50 pounds and enjoying every bite of everything that I ate, especially Girl Scout cookies. And I remember walking into the bathroom, getting ready to take my first shower after I'd come home from the hospital. And I had been saying all these negative things to myself. You're too fat. Why are you eating that? That you're not good. You're just mentally bullying myself. And I walked into the bathroom, bracing myself. I was like, I don't know what my body looks like, but I know I did not lose all the 50 pounds that I gained when I had my child. And so I was getting ready to look at myself with a very critical eye. And in that moment, it was just divine intervention like, oh no, you get to shift that. And instead of looking in the mirror and saying something awful to myself like I had been, I was able to look in the mirror and really see myself with gratitude. Now, I did not look at them in the mirror and say, "Ooh, girl, you look beautiful today." Far from it, but I started with gratitude. And I looked
Now,
in the
was
mirror and I
that
was,
your first, I'm sorry to interrupt you, was that your first child?
yes,
See,
yes,
you just gave birth and created a beautiful being, and then you decided, I'm not going to torture my, I mean, this is just intuitively, it sounds like you realized I just did something amazing and created, and now I'm not going to go ahead and, that could have been the divine thing, is that you were
mhm,
like, your body is a powerful,
mhm,
beautiful, right, thing that
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna bully this body. But
But
go,
I think I think my thought was more, I don't want her to grow up with this same stuff. I
mm,
want to be a good role model for her. And so
that's,
having a child was really the catalyst because I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for, somebody who was just coming into this world, and I wanted to pave the way for positivity, for confidence, for something completely different from what I had experienced. Not that my mom, no, I will tell you, my mom was a very positive role model. And, my stuff was my stuff. My parents were amazing. Um, my dad he's no longer with us, but he paid me and my brother to lose weight. And he had the best of intentions. He loved us dearly. But with that, I made that mean that I'm not worthy if I'm overweight. And that was my story. And I had to spend a lot of years unraveling that. But I think when I was able to have a child, I knew I didn't want to pass that on to her.
that's great that you realized I'm not gonna be this kind of role model. I don't want my daughter beating herself up in the mirror. I don't want my daughter criticizing herself, right?
Right. Absolutely. And it's just, I think it's so prevalent among women where we make ourselves wrong. We tell ourselves we're not good at why do we do that?
Oh my God, it's programming. It's like The Untethered Soul. Have you read that book?
I haven't. It's been on my list. I need to.
Yeah, so he just talks a lot about the inner voice and the voice in your head and how, and he just, it's very good. But yeah, I personally worked on that.
Yeah.
Um, so I see that today, like you were on Instagram Live and you were doing a wonderful message about around similar mindset work, and tell us a little more on that. So you
Yeah.
were,
Yeah. Well, actually, what I was talking about today is kind of started from my story. That's kind of what I got into. And it all goes back to the same thing. It's finding gratitude within ourselves. And so instead of looking in the mirror and, we just want to make ourselves, say something critical. I hear it all the time in the boutique. Women come in, they're like, "Oh, I've gained weight and I've this and, I'm not looking so good." I'm like, "No, no, no. Stop all the negative chatter. Start where you are." But where I was years ago, it was not where I could look into the mirror. I was not in a place where I could look into the mirror and say, "Oh, your hair looks great today," or whatever. But I was in a place where I could look in the mirror and have gratitude for my hands that I could hold my child, for my body. I gave natural childbirth with no epidural. I was
oh
like,
my gosh,
"Girl, you got it going on." And
yeah.
so finding the gratitude, finding the appreciation, and it kind of snowballed from there. And I had never read I'm not going to say I'd never read anything about affirmations, but I just like that wasn't really, it was kind of in my consciousness, but not really, not really. I'd not been around anybody who was doing that. I don't know. So I just think it was just total divine intervention. But it was interesting because I made a commitment to myself. I was like, all right, I'm going to pull myself up from my bootstraps. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm getting out of this hole. And every day when I would get up, and this is what I was talking about this morning, every day when I would get up, I would look in the mirror and I would find something to appreciate. And I would say, "Oh, my hair looks great today. What can I do to play my hair up? Oh, I can wear a color that makes my hair look more luminous, or I can wear something that makes my eyes pop, or I've got a nice smile. Maybe I'll wear a great lipstick." that brings the focus to it, or wear some pretty earrings that brings light to my face. And
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting because I was incorporating the inner work with style, with fashion, with what I teach now. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was putting two and two together, and people started to notice. They were like, wow, you look great. Will you come help me in my closet? Will you come to? And I was like, okay. And I remember one day I actually had a blog. I was a blogger at the time. My course of life has evolved to become a beauty and style blogger, because I had felt like I had lost my sense of style. And this was, I don't know, maybe couple of years later, because I had been doing that for a little while and people started to notice, but I was kind of winding down my design career and just really looking for what's next. So I started blogging, and it was really my blog at the time. It was called One Chic Mama. And it wasn't about me, it was about finding that one chic mama that's inside all of us. And I created it as a resource because I couldn't find any other resources out there for new moms. And I thought, you know what? Here I am holding my baby, like putting my mascara on with one hand, or my body's changed. I don't know what to wear anymore. Nothing fits. I couldn't find anything that was out there addressing my issues. And so I sought out to create it.
Beautiful.
And I remember sitting there one day, kind of doing some mind mapping, because I had this feeling. I was like, oh, there's more, there's more. Like, when you do something, you're like, there's more to this that I need to be doing. And I remember clearly writing down image consulting. And my first thought was, nah, not doing that. I don't want to do that. And then my next thought was, you get to do that. And I don't know, that just lit a fire in me. It was like, oh, you've discovered your purpose. This is why you're here. And I don't know, it was just this pivotal moment for me. And I just, boom, just hit the ground running. I created a business plan for myself. I mean, I had never done image consulting, but I had been around style all my life. And I came from parents with a great sense of style. I had always loved clothes and putting things together. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get some certifications. I'm going to take the courses I need to. I'm going to put all the pieces together. And I built the business from the ground up. And it just was like the floodgates opened.
Wow.
And I launched that in 2008, which,
Okay.
in the midst of a depression, or sort of a depression, not really a depression, but more of a recession.
Right.
But I had people coming in from out of town. I had some articles written about me. I was like, the universe said, you're doing this.
Oh my God, you've been blessed so many
It,
times in divine interventions. Were there any books that stand out in your mind, or like coaches, or anyone like a famous speaker like a Tony,
yeah.
anyone that's like helped you along the
Oh
way,
my
or it
gosh.
was
I have
all
worked with so many coaches. I love coaches. I would not be without a coach.
okay.
And I think, especially being a coach, I call myself a style coach now. But uh, well, one of the first coaches, I remember my first introduction into coaching was with Allie Brown. And I was going through a divorce at the time. Here's how crazy things are. I launched my business in 2008. And at the same time, I had been a stay-at-home mom working part-time with a blog, not really generating a lot of money. And my then husband got let go from his job during the recession. I launched my business and hit the ground running. But in 2009, we split up, and which was, totally meant to happen. And I just was like, okay, how can I do this? How can I get this out there to more women? And somehow on Facebook, I saw something for Allie Brown, but she was the first marketing. She was really a marketing mentor at the time. She mentors, high level women kind of at a different level. But I saw an advertisement on Facebook for her event called Shine. And every fiber of my being knew I needed to be there. And
Mm.
I actually had my ex-husband, we went up to a field in our neighborhood, and I had him record a video because I was submitting my video to win the free ticket, because we didn't really have much money. He had just lost his job. I was just starting mine. And it was like, okay, I have to be there. And I didn't win the free ticket, but they made me a really good offer. I was like, in. And I took a huge leap of faith and invested a huge amount of money into her coaching program because with every fiber of my being, I knew I needed to be a part of that.
Oh,
And it changed my life.
you are so inspiring. Your story is so inspiring. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
And
you
so,
mentioned a boutique. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go
well,
ahead.
I was going to say from there, I've had so many amazing mentors and, people, Fabian Fredrickson, I worked with her. She was very, very pivotal in my career. And Gina DeVee, which is how we met, she's been
Yeah.
amazing. And Danelle Delgado.
So
I'm actually,
have you used it now?
yeah, I was in Danelle's program.
Go
Went
in
on
on
repeat.
repeat?
Yeah,
Okay, because
she's a
I'm about to
powerhouse.
join. I'm going to
Yeah,
join.
she's a powerhouse. But I'm actually working with Michelle Barr right now.
Really?
And
Yeah,
she's
I worked
been,
with Michelle.
yes, yes.
Good for you.
And I
That's
actually
amazing.
just got back from Phoenix, Arizona. Went out there for an event called Life Coach Live. And I am in the process of becoming a certified life coach with Brooke Castillo.
That is amazing. Now, I heard you mention a little bit ago the boutique. So do you currently now have another boutique?
I do have another boutique. Actually, it's kind of funny because I started style coaching in 2008. And my husband, I was remarried in 2012. We just had our 10-year anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you. And my husband would hear me talking about working with clients and then getting out to shop. And he heard me talk about the disconnect between here's what I know they need, and we're going out shopping, but we can't find it. And one day we were on a walk, and he's like, "We should open a boutique." And my first words were, "Hell no." Been there, done that. We're not doing that. And I thought about it and really kind of gave it some thoughtful and prayerful consideration. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it.
It's a
Let's do
different
it.
time now, right? You have a
Right.
partner, you have,
Right.
you had your mother was
Mhm.
an amazing supporter. It sounds like you've been
Mhm.
just given so many entrepreneurial everything, but like you learned the first time and now it's like it's going to be different this time. And you had all the
Yes.
coaching behind you and yeah, so you
Yes.
probably you learned what not to do and what, there's
Absolutely. We
listening.
still almost lost our shirt the first 6 months because I think opening a boutique, I think a lot of people go into it and they think, oh, it's going to be fun. You can easily get in way over your head because, oh, that's pretty and that's pretty. If you're not watching your numbers, then all the pretty things can add up. And sooner or later, it's like you need new goods, but you don't have any money to pay for them. But we paved our way and we worked with some other great coaches. We've actually, definitely had retail coaches along the way. And that's been huge for us. But having people to guide us, and we've learned so much. But that was 7 years ago. And our business now looks almost completely different than what it looks like when we first opened.
Nice. And it's just one boutique or you have more than one
Yeah,
or
well, it's just one, but it is online. When
oh,
we first opened, I think what my husband really, he and I both set out to do was bring my style coaching expertise to the boutique, to the clients who were shopping, and help them understand what to wear for their coloring, their body type, their style. And what we realized is that clients would come in, we would share our expertise with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not shopping anywhere else. And we were kind of like the best kept secret that we were off the beaten path, and we would have people seek us out and come in from all over the place. And so 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, we moved to a more central location. And we're in one of the premier shopping areas in Raleigh now. And things were growing and doing really well. And then COVID hit. And we came really close to having to shut our doors during COVID. But again, divine intervention. I keep like that's my theme. Um, but I remember we had just gotten the notice that all non-essential businesses had to close. And my husband looked at me and said, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to turn the camera on and we're going to go live because we had kind of played around with that before. It wasn't a new concept to us, but it wasn't something we were incorporating into our business at that time. But I said, we're going to turn the camera on. We're going to sell to our audience online. We're going to engage with our audience online, and we're going to keep this business afloat. And at that moment, UPS came knocking at the door with 7 big boxes of one of our favorite vendors. And we had to make a split second decision. Do we keep these like several $1,000s worth of goods, knowing we may not have any revenue, or do we send them back? And I said, oh no, we're keeping those. And I'm so grateful that we did, because that fueled us for 6 weeks. We went live every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. I mean, we did not miss a day. We didn't have anywhere to go. It was
Right.
COVID. We went live, and we would come up, my manager at the time, she and I would come up with these themes, and then we would style each other. We would show different outfits, and it was so crazy in the beginning just to think back to the progress. But we realized, hey, there's actually software we can use that can interface with what we're doing and can help us reach more people and help us streamline the procedure,
Oh,
because we were having to go through and manually reach out to people. I mean, we learned a lot. And it's so fascinating, because if we had not had that experience, we would not have set up our online website. We had a website, but we didn't have online shopping. And so we now have a website where we sell. We have an app, a Style Finder, it's Style Finder Boutique. And then our website is shopstylefinder.com. And we have clients all over the country now. We only ship inside the US, but we have clients all over the country. But we have continued with our live shows.
That's
And
amazing. Oh my gosh. And now you don't have the overhead, right?
well, we have the overhead
Oh,
because
you
we
still
have a
have,
retail boutique, but
oh, you
in
do.
the new year, we're actually going to be phasing that out. I mean, not retail, but we're not going to have
Brick and mortar.
a brick and mortar the way we do now. We'll have a showroom and we'll do private appointments, but we will
Mhm.
not have a brick and mortar, because we spend so much of our time on lives, shooting content, doing things behind the scenes, interfacing with our clients, answering questions, doing style Q&A, shooting videos.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of reels where we're teaching and showing people, here's how you wear this for a muffin top, and
That's
trying to help
I've
people.
seen some of your stuff. It's awesome. And I love what you're doing. And I'd like to shift into like how powerful and important just the whole like my podcast called Empowered, and how empowering it is when you look good and you feel good. And
Yes.
just how important, even though we try not to judge others, we all do it anyway, but it's just about feeling good. And I just know for me, like yesterday, I had an invitation to go to someone new in my community. She's building a home. I just got my real
Mhm.
estate license down here in Florida,
That's
and
awesome.
it's going to be completely different. Thank you. And the energy's different, the price point's different, and I'm handling things differently. But she was taking me to her new home site to show me her home, and then we're going to go to lunch at her country club.
Mhm.
And I just was like, what do I wear in my mind? And I like, and I just said, I'm going to wear what feels good. And it was just one of
Yes.
those moments where you stop and you're like, am I going to dress how I want to dress, or am I going to dress because of what. And I know I need to get a couple things like the shoes department, but ultimately, it was just, I like being comfortable and feeling good about myself. And
Absolutely.
we're both the same age, you and I know that. So you can relate with that. But yeah, let's talk about that component and just express how truly, like, I think there's just women like my mother who never cared what she looked like, never shopped for clothing. I mean, that's just a different generation or different person. But I mean,
Think it's a different mind. I wouldn't say a different generation, because I think there are people like that. I mean, now
yeah,
I just think it's a
true.
different mindset.
It is, it is. And like, I've always spent money on my hair. I've always spent money. There's certain things I've always spent money on.
Mhm.
And so I just want you to talk on a little bit about just all of that, like the passion behind, what you're doing for women and how
Yeah,
important. Yeah.
sure. Well, I tell my clients, style is not the most important thing, but
Oh, you
your
feel.
style tells the world who you are. But more importantly, it affects how we see ourselves. There's a huge correlation between your style and your self image. And what I have found is that style, I think I like to say style is a tool. It's a tool that we can use because we get dressed every day and we can choose to get dressed up and look great and wear something that we love, or we can choose to just pull on, frumpy gray sweatpants and, a baggy shirt and be done with it. But I think, and I know this to be true for myself, on the days where I get up, dress up, and show up, I feel different. I carry myself differently.
Same.
Um, and there's an energy. There's actually a study, a great study. It's called Enclothed Cognition. I don't know why I haven't heard time saying enclothed. Enclothed cognition. And the gist of it is that there were people who were part of the study, and they measured how they felt about themselves. And they, I can't remember all the details of it, but I remember one specific piece of it was about them wearing lab coats. And there were all these people, they were not doctors, and they measured like their self confidence, their self esteem, just dressed as they were every day. And then they put lab coats on them. Well, they weren't doctors. They didn't wear lab coats to work, but there was something about when they put that lab coat on, they stood up straighter. They started to view themselves as smarter, as more intelligent, more confident, more empowered, just from a lab coat. Like anybody can put that on. So, people you see little kids with their superhero cape on. I'm like, you go, girl. But there is such a power. I like to talk about the secret power of style and the secret power of clothes because I have seen it over and over and over. Women come in the boutique, dressed kind of frumpy, down on themselves. I've gained weight. I don't feel good. I'm in a slump. We're like, girl, we've got you because you're beautiful no matter what. But I think sometimes when we look in the mirror and what we see doesn't reflect who we know ourselves to be or the standard that we have for ourselves,
The
then we start to tell
queen,
ourselves the
the
queen,
queen that we
absolutely.
are. Yes, we
Then
all
we tell ourselves, I'm not good enough. I need to lose weight, and just start beating ourselves up. And it can really chip away at our self-esteem. And then we stop getting our nails done. Maybe we stop doing our hair, stop wearing makeup. And we just kind of slide into this slump. But what I believe is that when we can take the time, first of all, I tell my kids this all the time. When you take the time to shower and put yourself together and pick out an outfit that you really, really like, it sends the message to others that you care for yourself, that you love yourself, you respect yourself, that you are worthy. But it also sends the message to you. You reinforce that belief. But if you wake up and you're like, I'm not going to see anybody today, who cares? Well, you should care. I mean, it doesn't mean you're getting all dolled up just to sit at home all day, every day. But it does mean that, and a lot of people told me this during COVID. It seemed like people fell in two camps during COVID. When you're staying at home all day, those who got up and dressed up, or those who put on their yoga pants or stayed in their pajamas. And it's interesting, I've talked to so many people, but it's the people who stayed in their yoga pants or their pajamas. I'm certainly not here to judge anybody, but what they told me is that they gained weight, they felt fat, they didn't feel good about themselves, they felt sloppy,
overdrink, overeat.
overeat. It's like it's this, you're just disconnected from yourself. I think when you're not connected to your style, you're not connected to who you are at the core. Because ultimately, your style should be a representation from the inside out of who you are.
Yeah.
I like to say what the world, what you wear tells the world who you are.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be expensive either. It's like I did a live yesterday where I said, I feel so good today. And it was because I had a new top on from Athleta and how I went in there and they had the sale stuff in the back. And I looked through it and I tried on a couple things, but I didn't buy anything that I was just going to buy because it's on sale. I bought what I loved, what felt good. And I
Mhm.
just loved how I felt. I put on my son's Lulu hat. I don't know if you saw the live, but it was just a very powerful message saying it doesn't take that much to feel abundant and to feel
Mm.
good. And, I talked about how you could get a cologne sample at a department store. I got bond number 9 for my son, 2 samples, and it's like $400 a bottle, this cologne. And I'm like, you could put that on and feel amazing and abundant and wealthy. And it just doesn't take that much to do that. And,
Mhm.
or buying new eyeshadow or just something that makes you feel good. And I just think that that's so under underestimated. I don't know what the word I'm
Mhm.
looking for right now, but
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
I know
take
what
that.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think a lot of people just they discount style. I think a lot of people think of style as frivolous, but I think it's anything but. I do believe that if you get too caught up in just the label, that you might be inclined to wear something that you don't love just because it's Chanel or Michael Kors or whatever your brand is. And it's not like, yeah, like I love it. It's just, oh, hey, look at my brand.
Mm.
I'm flat, flaunting whatever today. I think people can get caught up in that, but I think what style is about is putting things together
Yeah.
in a way that is representative of you.
I'm going to say this. I worked part-time at Saks for 2 weeks, and it's a story why I'm not, I didn't come down here to do that job, but I wanted a fun job. Anyway, but I had the customers. First of all, I loved the customers. I
Mm.
loved them. And they are shopping for $2,000 up bags, handbags, and they would compliment what I was wearing. They would compliment my bag. And I had like a Brighton bag. And, it was just, it felt so good. I mean, I've had this happen more than once, but and it was a lot of fun getting dressed for that job because I enjoy style and I enjoy fashion. So I just it's just a lot of fun doing that and getting, dressed up for a job. And then yeah, you're out and about. And that part of it was I'm gonna be out and about. I'm gonna be getting dressed up. I'm gonna be near the mall. I'm gonna, versus being in sweat, workout clothes all the time because I'm,
Yes,
you know,
that makes a difference. But
but yeah.
style isn't about a price point. It doesn't matter. I remember when I was growing up, I had this reflection recently, but I remember I don't remember what grade it was, but I remember somebody asking me, because I've always been a fashionista and I've always bought nice things. I mean, not necessarily expensive things, but nice things. Your dog's so cute.
Thank
Oh,
you.
so sweetie. Um, I've always picked out things that I like. I love investing in certain pieces that I know are going to last me, but not everything's an investment. I mean, some things like the t-shirt I've got on for Paris, it's like, I bought this on the street, but then I put it with my nice liquid leather jacket. It's all in how you wear it. But I remember somebody asked me how much money my outfit cost. And she
Mhm.
was looking at everything, my sneaker, I don't name brand sneakers and my jeans and, some top that was nothing special. But she's like, oh, your outfit cost over $100. And said it like, and it was someone who I know she didn't have a lot of money. I mean, not that my family did have a lot of money, but just the way she said it made me, I felt bad about myself. And I was like, oh, I should hide my labels. But
Mm.
what I realized is, yeah, that's all her stuff, whatever. That's not my stuff because I wasn't late. I wasn't flaunting the labels at all. I was just wearing what I liked that was pretty mainstream at the time.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh,
Can you hear me? Oops.
yeah,
Okay. Um,
yes.
I know that when I saw like now after working there, I started like really noticing the purses and and wallets and handbags that people wear, and it's just very interesting and fascinating. But and I would say, oh, even if I had $10 million, I wouldn't spend this. And I'm like, no, I actually would. I would spend that money because I would feel a certain way. And that's, how it's all a feeling for me. It's,
Absolutely.
that's why we want things, is for a feeling, like Tony Robbins would always say, the only reason it's for a feeling. And if you could have that feeling right now.
Mhm.
And, so that's just all very interesting, but I love what you're doing. I love how you're empowering women. So you probably are mostly referral based. Your whole business is just referrals, right? That's
Well, we with the boutique, we have so many people who find us from social media, from Instagram. And we have, I mean, it's kind of interesting because our following has grown so much, but we have women who reach out from all over. We do have virtual styling services at the boutique where we're able to, style somebody and shop for someone virtually anywhere in the country.
wow.
And then I just launched a course. It's called How to Find Your Signature Style that is on demand. It's all my best stuff.
Mm,
But it is, you can take that anywhere you are in the world.
mm,
But so we have ways that women can work with us, no matter where they are. But we're not necessarily by referral. To be honest, our social media has grown so much. We're not currently doing any paid advertising,
mm.
and I'm very grateful for that.
That's
But as far as my style coaching goes, that is, I have a retreat coming up in January. I do have some private packages. I don't necessarily advertise that. That is more referral based. Or if
mm,
someone sees me on Instagram and reaches out and says, "Hey, I'm interested in color analysis," or "I'm interested in, one of your packages working, high level branding packages or professional packages," and so that's more referral. I don't really publish that, but when people reach out and we have a conversation, I can let them know about that.
nice. Where's the retreat in January?
It's actually going to be in Raleigh. It's
Oh,
going to be a 3-day retreat. There's a hotel right next to our boutique. And so it's going to be based at the hotel. And we're going to do a deep dive, design your style from the inside out
mm,
and create a strategy to take you through the next year, who you want to be, help you show up as the woman you want to be, and really get your mindset on the right track.
beautiful. Yeah. And then, what advice would you give to the 18, 19-year-old today
Mm.
with the comparisonitis, the social media, just not knowing what they want? Just what advice would you give the young person today?
Oh, so much. Well, first of all, I would say, so much of what you see on social media is not real. And even if it is real, you're only seeing a piece of it. You're not seeing the whole puzzle. And it's interesting. I've seen more and more people kind of, lifting the veil and exposing what's really behind the scenes.
Vulnerable.
And,
Yeah.
I think don't pay attention to all that, but stop comparing yourself to anybody out there because your journey is yours. And it's interesting. I say that because I used to compare myself to pretty much everybody. Is she prettier? Is she fatter? Am I fatter? Does she have better? I mean, just all of this negative talk oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that. But it was incessant. And I was so focused on what I thought everybody else thought about me and comparing myself that I wasn't focused on what I thought about me.
And
And
that's
my
really all that
confidence,
matters is what you think about you. That's
yeah.
all that matters is what you think about you
I
and what
posted a
I
reel
think,
the other day. It was about, it's none of your business. It's none of your business what
what
other
other
people
people think.
think about
Yeah,
you. It's
exactly.
none of my business what people think about me.
You
If they
can't
don't,
control it. Yeah.
yeah. And then, you're always going to have people, especially as you get out there and you grow your business or whatever you do, you are always going to have people talking junk. And 9 times out of 10, well, either they're trolls. Sadly, we get trolls who like to say some not so nice things, but they're either trolls or they're jealous. They're jealous.
Exactly. I did that like years ago. I was standing in the Starbucks line and I turned and these women, they gave me a dirty look. They don't know me, nothing. And at that moment I said, that's a compliment. Turned every
Yeah.
time there's any kind of negative thing like that, I make it a compliment.
Hmm. Good for you. That's
Yeah, I'm
huge.
like, okay, this is just jealousy, and jealous of me or whatever, and I'm taking it as a compliment. So that's what I did. And I tell that to a lot of people, a lot of my friends, because I went into Saks the other day and I was talking to I was looking at handbags, and I was talking to someone who was newer there, and we were chatting, and I asked her how she liked it. And, because some of the colleague, the other people she goes, yeah, I just stay away from the ones that are jealous or intimidated by me. And I said, yeah, that's what you do.
Mhm.
And anyway, we were just talking, and I told her that tip about, you just take that as a compliment.
I love it. That's a great piece of advice for sure.
Yeah, I just did
Yeah.
that. And I wasn't even doing mindset work. But so how did you shift out of that self-critic? Was it the coaches that helped you to realize that you had this inner critic? And how did you like finally stop comparing and worrying what others thought of you, and worrying she prettier or any of that? Like, how did you stop doing all that and just realize that you needed to be compassionate and
Mhm.
love yourself? Like, how did you
Yeah.
start
Well, I
loving?
think so much of it started, 19 years ago when I had my daughter, and I made that decision. I mean, that was the first thing is I decided, I drew the line. I was like, no more. Done. Time for the next chapter. And so that put me on a journey. And that's from that, I started it was like, I just would well, I hate to say correct myself. I would catch myself.
Yeah.
And every time I started to say, ooh, oh no, not going there. And
Yeah.
I just started with noticing and creating an awareness and then having something to go to. Ooh, oh yeah, my hair looks good today. Oh yeah, I'm wearing a shirt that enhances my hair. Oh yeah, I'm focused
Nice.
on my earrings today because they bring light to my face.
Nice. Yeah.
And so that was the start of it. And then I think all the coaches that I seek out have this underlying empowerment to them, whether they've been business coaches or whatever, spiritual coaches, or what, there's this underlying empowerment. Yeah, it's all the same message, really, like be
Yeah.
confident. And so it took me hearing it for a little while. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Because I started to just shed those layers.
Yeah. I remember
But
my
I
first,
think
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for me, during the pandemic, I just went on this okay, there are some things I need to just let go of. And I wasn't sure what they were, but it was just some mental blocks that were holding me back. And I think a lot of it was reading. Wayne Dyer, even though he's not still alive, he's been a huge teacher for me. Huge. And I have a couple of, I have five questions. There are two that really have affected me. And two, they're from some coaching friends, and then one is actually from Gina. So three questions that I ask myself. And so when something happens, it's looking at what do I make that mean? Because I see in my life, like so much of my trauma was self-induced because I made something mean something that didn't necessarily mean. And I carried that with me. And then I had feelings because I thought that way. And then I act certain ways, and then I am not
Right.
the person I want to be
You
because
had you had some toxic thinking. You were
I
thinking
did. I did.
toxic ways of thinking and being. And I overcame the same thing. And it's a constant, it's a constant work that we have to do. You don't, brush your
Mhm.
teeth today and you're all good for the whole week. I mean, you have to
Absolutely.
keep working on it.
Absolutely.
But so what are the three questions that, so you said, what am I making this mean? And because, even Tony Robbins will say, nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. Nothing has
Absolutely.
any meaning except the meaning you give it. And it's
Yes.
really
Yes.
powerful.
So that's the first one. And the second one is how could I see this differently? And that I got from Marianne Williamson.
Yeah. Mary.
Her book Return to Love was huge for me. I read that when I was going through a divorce, and that just changed everything for me. It is, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because when I met my husband, he had a copy of it on his bookshelf. I was like, you're the man for me.
You're a keeper. Yeah. Oh,
You're a
that's
keeper. You're
awesome.
reading that, then we're on the same page.
Okay. How can I see this differently? That was the second one. And then the third.
The third is, and this is from Gina, if this is happening for you and not to you, how could you see it even different? How can
Right.
you let that shift your perspective?
I love it.
That's a whole reframe right there.
Yeah. This is happening to me because this is happening to me because something like that, right?
Well, if this has happened, so if you think about like something that just happened,
Just a positive reason.
and because a lot of us will, oh, this is happening to me, and sometimes our
Victim mode.
actually, what was it? I was reading we get some magazines that I did not subscribe to, but somehow they come to our mailbox, and I think it was People or Us or something, some trashy tabloid. And I was looking at it, and it was talking about who was it? Tom Cruise and somebody, another actor, and it was talking about how they were vying for the same role, and there was bad blood because Tom Cruise really wanted it, and blah blah blah, and all this masculine energy. But it was talking about how there was um revenge and like still carried a grudge.
Mm,
But if you look at it as whoever got the role, like you didn't get that role because this was happening for you, and because he didn't get whatever role he was trying to get, he got the role in Top Gun,
hmm.
which led him to what he's doing now. But Tom Cruise was like carrying this big grudge against, I wish I could remember who it was. There were so many people in that magazine.
Yeah.
But so if this is happening for me and not to me, you're like, oh, okay, this is supposed to happen. And maybe there's something better. And there's a reason I didn't get that podcast interview, or there's a reason I didn't get a call back from that person, or there's a reason that person
Yeah.
didn't want to go have lunch with me or whatever. Because then, then it kind of goes back to, what are you making it mean? Like somebody doesn't want to have lunch with you. Well, they must not like me, and blah, blah, get down the rabbit hole. But if
Right.
you can reframe it as if this is happening for me, maybe I'm not supposed to be friends with her. Maybe there's something, I don't know, out there in the
Exactly.
ether that is protecting me from
Yes. If one of your
something.
affirmations is that all is always happening for me or the highest good for all, then you just know that there's an underlying blessing. Absolutely. Like you said, rejection is
Yes.
protection. Rejection is redirection. That's something Michelle Bauer would totally say. We had a great podcast interview. Yeah, she's a powerhouse. She's amazing. So humble too. I do
Awesome.
love Michelle, and it's awesome that you guys are working together. Well, what is there anything else you want to share? And then we'll put in the show notes all of how everyone can find you. I love what you're doing. It's just a beautiful thing. And that your
Can I
husband,
mention my podcast?
oh yes, of course, mention your podcast.
Yeah, so I started a podcast. Actually, that's one thing that came out of the pandemic, is this burning desire to start a podcast. I thought about for a long time, but kept, was like, well, not sure I'm ready. And finally I was like, all right, I'm doing it. I just kind of threw myself into the fire and started it in April of 2021. And I am so grateful that I did. It's called Style by Mary Michelle. And I've met so many amazing women. I have women, reach out. I have a Facebook group. It's called Style by Mary Michelle Podcast. And we've got women who listen from, I checked last night, I think it's 85 countries.
Wow.
And I think I have over 80,000 downloads,
Oh
which
my
is, I'm
goodness.
pretty excited about that because it started out really, really slow. So
Oh,
hang in there when you just don't give up. Just be persistent with it.
thank
And I
you.
just promote it and, just have so much fun. Share. It's so funny because I thought, well, who wants to listen to style advice? Like style is so visual, right? But it's interesting because I can talk about things. And I thought, well, you can listen while you're walking or driving or doing something. And there's a lot I can share that you don't have to see.
Exactly. There's a lot of mindset. And then if they're following you on your podcast, they're going to go to your Instagram and they're going to see all your stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are just a bright light and we just need you. We need more people like you. And it's a lot about women empowerment, I really think. And I'll just wanted to share one thing. My first coach in 2017, we were on a group phone call and someone was talking and she was apologizing for taking up time.
Mm-hmm.
And this coach said, never apologize again.
Mm-hmm.
And it stuck. And I mean, I got a lot of, this was one of the most expensive coach I ever hired. And it was like, I had a huge shift in my life from her, and um, just the self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem, confidence, just
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Because, as women, we're often taught, I mean, all of society, but, to sit in a corner and don't say this and don't be too much of that. And you know what I mean? Just,
Mm-hmm.
and here she was giving us permission to be and not be apologizing. And it's just a wonderful thing. Need, we need more of that, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
this.
it's so good to talk to you.
I love it. It's great to see you, and you're just so amazing. I love all of your stuff, and I'm going to keep following you. And on Instagram, it's Style by Mary Michelle.
Yes, Style by Mary Michelle, and you can follow me over at Shop Style Finder.
Okay. And then
That's
Facebook
awesome.
group, is that private? How do you get in the Facebook group?
It is private. Excuse me. It is private. Hold on.
Okay.
It is private, but it's Styled by Mary Michelle podcast.
Okay.
So you can
Perfect.
just go request to join, and I'll let you in there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. Enjoy your weekend. And
Linda, thank you. It was a joy to be here.
yes, have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Yep. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
I just got my Apple.